Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's about that time of day where I take off the hat, put up the guitar, and read you a story. So will you join me as we begin? Anyway, without further ado, here's the Black Cat. For the most wild narrative I'm about to tell, I neither expect nor solicit belief, for tomorrow I die, and today I wish to unburden my soul. My immediate purpose is to place before the world plainly a series of mere household events, events that have terrified me and destroyed me. See, I was quite young when I married. My bride saw my love for domestic pets, and she lost no opportunity of procuring as many as she could. We had birds, goldfish, a fine dog, rabbits, a small monkey, and a cat. Now, this cat was a beautiful animal, and an enormous cat that was entirely jet black. I named it Pluto, and it was the pet that I liked best. My wife was a bit superstitious and joked that it could be a witch in disguise, so I alone fed it, and it followed me all around the house and even the streets. Our friendship lasted in this blissful manner for several years until I started to change for the worse. I grew day by day moodier and more irritable, more regardless of others or the feelings of others. One night, returning home, much intoxicated, I noticed the cat avoided my presence. This angered me greatly, so I seized him. Then, just when the cat, in his fright at my violence, he inflicted a slight wound on my hand with his teeth, a nip. The fury of a demon instantaneously possessed me, and I knew myself no longer. I took from my waistcoat pocket a small pocket knife, opened it, grasped the poor beast by the throat, and deliberately cut out one of its eyes from the socket. I shudder even to retail this horrible deed. The cat slowly recovered, no longer appearing to be in any pain. That's good. No longer appearing to be in any pain, he went about the house as usual, but as might be expected, the cat fled at the sight of me. This began to anger me. So, one morning, in cold blood, I slipped a noose about its neck and hung it to the limb of a tree. Hung it with tears streaming from my eyes. I knew that it loved me, that it made no offense, but it had to be done, even if it placed my soul in a place even beyond the reach of the most merciful God. Later that night, when the cruel deed was done, I was awoken from my sleep by the sounds of fire. The whole house was blazing. It was with great difficulty that my wife and I made our escape, but the destruction was complete. My worldly wealth was all gone, all burned up. Then it crept into my mind. Could this be the result of the cat in some mysterious way? Did it cause the house to burn to make me pay for my evil act, so it may take revenge upon me? For months, I could not escape the thought. One night, as I sat half drunk as usual at my local tavern, my eyes were suddenly drawn with my attention to a black object in the corner of the room. I approached to see what it could be. It was a cat. It too was missing an eye. It was a cat almost exactly like Pluto, save for one patch of white upon its otherwise black coat. I reached out to pet it, passing my hand softly down its back, to which The cat rose and pushed against my hand. Seeing how it took a liking to me, I offered to buy it from the innkeeper, but he claimed that to have never seen it before. And as I left, the cat followed, and when we reached the house, it domesticated itself at once and became a great favorite immediately with my wife. But for me, I soon found a dislike for it arising within me. My aversion to this cat, however, its fondness for myself seemed to increase. It followed my every footstep. If I arose to walk, it would get between my feet and thus nearly throw me over. I began to hate the cat. Evil thoughts became the sole thoughts in my head. The moodiness of my usual temper increased to hatred for all things and all of mankind. One day my wife called upon me to go into the cellar of what remained of our home. The cat followed me, as it usually did, down the steep stairs, and nearly throwing me head first down there, it spiraled me to madness. I snapped, so I grabbed an old axe off the walk and swung it in my wrath, in which I aimed at a blow at the animal. Had it not been for my wife's quick hand, it would have landed a fatal blow on the cat. Enraged by the interference, I withdrew my arm from her grasp and buried the axe in her brain. She fell dead upon the spot without a groan. With this hideous murder accomplished, I set myself forth with the task of concealing the body. I knew that I could not remove it from the house without the risk of being seen, so I pondered cutting up the corpse into fragments or destroying it by fire until I finally determined to wall it up in the cellar. By means of a crowbar, I easily dislodged the bricks and deposited the body against the inner wall. And propped up in an upright position, I prepared a plaster and I went over the new brickwork. Once done, the wall did not present the slightest appearance of ever having been disturbed. Days passed, and the cat never returned, although I did not search, but I slept in bliss each night. Neighbors stopped by to ask of my dear wife, but I answered them with ease that she was just away. Then, one day, several officers of the police came, confident that they could find nothing. I let them search the house, or what was left of it, bit by bit. The officers were thoroughly satisfied and prepared to depart, but just then, I felt myself driven by some unknown force to tell them that all was well. Nothing suspicious was here. The walls of this building, I said, are very strongly built. It is a fine old house. And as I spoke, I struck my stick in that very place in the wall behind which was my wife's body. No sooner had the reverberation of my blows sunk into the silence that I was answered with a voice from within the tomb. A cry. At first muffled, but then growing louder and almost like wailing. A screaming now, sounding from like the throats of the damned in pure agony. For one short moment, the officers stood looking at each other. Then, quickly, they began to pick at the stones, and in a short time, they saw before them the body of my wife, black with dried blood and smelling of rotted flesh and decay. On the body's head, its one eye filled with fire, its mouth wide open, and the color of blood sat the hideous beast of a cat. That damned cat! It had been the one crying out its revenge. The cat whose craft had seduced me into murder, and whose tattling voice had sentenced me to death, to the hangman. I walled the monster up in the tomb.